So we're filming in what we call Rose Cottage. So it's a little frame building that was stuccoed on the outside, and it was built probably the first half of the first decade of the 1900s to provide a home for a domestic servant, childcare provider, household servant for the King family. When Port Hope developed its registry of heritage buildings, the original buildings of the estate were all designated, but nothing about the land around them, which included the golf course going up to Lakeshore Road. And so the housing development that has been occurring broke that contact to the north. But what they hadn't broken yet was that the laneway to go to the golf course and its parking lot and driving range all went by Rose's Cottage. And so they applied for a demolition permit, and since it was not named as one of the specific items, they were given it immediately. Everybody in this town who went by the entrance to go into the golf course felt an affinity and an affection for this house that didn't look like anything else in their town. And so the Architectural Conservancy got into action. And the first thing you do is you write the mayor. And one of our members of our executive kept talking with the developer and got the immediate date of June 1st as the demolition date delayed for 2 or 3 weeks. But it was going to come down the very next weekend after the middle of June. And so we put it out on our social media. And there was an explosion of people who were upset about the loss of the building. And the result was that the mayor's office called a meeting. And I'd spoken with you, just in passing.
Yes, called into the meeting to give some insight. We decided, our company, to take on the project and to mobilize quite quickly and get the Rose Cottage itself prepped and ready and stabilized for shipment for a new home, not knowing where that home would be. The next couple months following that, we did a lot of homework, and conveniently enough, a lovely couple next door to Rose Cottage here, they have a gorgeous house. It's Colonel Seymour's old house, and they have a vacant plot of land, which is where Rose Cottage now sits. We were able to acquire that and start the journey of 5 blocks to get Rose Cottage down here and rest on a new foundation. We were very, very fortunate to find this property just because of its proximity, but also it suits well within the neighborhood.
I remember that day because it was the coldest day of our winter. It took about 14 hours with about 8 hydro trucks clearing the lines. But there's a story before that as well.
We had to enter into several contracts, and we ended up having to get the cottage itself off of the Mason Home Development property in very quick time. So we ended up having to move it temporarily onto King's Field, which is an adjacent municipal property. I believe by the time we moved over there, I think we only had about 3 months to find the final resting place here. Quite a tight timeline in order to get property, find property, especially when we needed something fairly close because we were moving the house down on dollies. So the farther away it is, the more expense and the more headaches it can be.
The cost of the move was frightful, and so we tried to defray a third of the cost of that move.
The ACO on my side has always been phenomenal. We've worked with the ACO for close to a decade now, preserving buildings in Port Hope, other homes, and everyone on our crew has a true passion to preserve some of these gorgeous buildings and homes that have been around for a century or more, and hopefully will continue to be around for an additional century or longer. The committee was phenomenal, bent over backwards to obviously help us save the house and work with us with any help that we needed on maybe asking the town for a little bit of leeway, a little bit more timing, as well on some of the financials to help some of that burden as well. So thank you very much to the ACO.